Hello, I'm going to demo how to make this mask I'm wearing that ties back behind. Elastics are really hard to find right now, and the mask inside of it has a vacuum bag filter in it in order to help filter out more than just the regular cloth. So I'll just start by showing you the front of the mask is just a straight piece of fabric. On the back, and then we've got these channels in the side to feed this ribbon through. And then it actually has a little flap on the inside. And inside here, I've got a vacuum bag, both the cloth part of the vacuum bag, which is not cooperating, there it is, and the paper part, which is going to filter out more than just the regular cloth masks people have been wearing. So essentially what you're going to need is the fabric you want to use, a 10 by 12 square of that, and you're going to need some ribbon, 30 inches each side is what I'm using. If you are doing a bigger size mask, you'll need it to be longer, a paper clip, your scissors, a measuring tape, an iron, and of course a sewing machine. When you start with your fabric, if you're using a pattern that you care if it's oriented one way or another, this one I wouldn't particularly want to use sideways. You want the 12 inches to be the height when it's oriented. So 10 inches wide by 12 inches long. So I start out using a piece of material that I've washed in hot water and dried to make sure it doesn't shrink after it's created. Once I've done that, I'm going to flip it over, and I want to make seams along each side so that you can sew over and not have the rough edge, which will fray when it's being washed. One of the benefits of this mask is you can pull out the inside of the filter that we're going to put in from the vacuum cleaner bag and be able to wash it and then put that filter back in or change it to a new filter. So first what I'm going to do is just fold over each side just a little bit, maybe 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to use the iron to iron that down. So I've made the creases, and I've used the iron to make the seams a little bit more straight. It makes it easier when you sew. And I will mention, I do not make how-to videos, and I do not sew. I actually just bought the sewing machine. I haven't sewed for over 10 years, so I will probably get lots of terms wrong. And so once I've had this ironed down, I'm going to go ahead and put just a stitch, a regular straight stitch along just the top and the bottom. You don't need to do the sides because that'll get done later. So start with just the very top and the very bottom, running a stitch along. All right, so now I've got a stitch that I put in just at the very top and the very bottom. Again, the sides are just ironed over. They're not sewn yet. Now orienting the material so that we have the top of it up here so that we make sure it's not upside down. I'll take this and fold it, maybe about 1 inch or so over. I haven't actually measured it. I just kind of look at what you would need for a flap. This is going to be your flap to stop the filter from coming out. So go ahead and fold it down and iron it. Now that we've got the top flap ironed down, bring the bottom up to the top, but actually tuck it underneath the flap. Just make sure you're not going past where it will fold down. Maybe just bring it a slight amount under so there's not pressing up against. And you're going to put another crease in with the iron here. Now, once that is done, you will want to fold over each side, also about 1 inch. It also depends on your ribbon. The fold over on the side is going to be in order to open up the channel for the ribbon. So you need to have enough space for the ribbon to easily slide through, and then for your stitch to come all the way along here. So about this far, it's about an inch, about the same as the top. You're going to fold over each side and just go ahead and iron it down so it's in place. I've got both sides ironed down, I'm going to go ahead and put a stitch right on the very outside because you're wanting to capture where you fold it over to make sure you don't want to put it over here. You need all the room you can to put your ribbon through there. So your stitch is going to go right along the very outside. Oops, like here. Very important that this flap, the top flap's down first, and that this folds over on top of it, because otherwise if you were to fold this over first and then put the flap down, you don't have the opening for your ribbon to go through. So don't make that mistake. Okay, so once you've sewn both of your stitches along the edge, this is the back of your mask, and you've got this little pouch here. Basically made yourself a cloth envelope that you'll be able to put the filter from the vacuum cleaner bag. And then you've got these channels in here. On the front, it's just a plain piece of fabric. Now you've got to put in your ribbons. So you want to experiment with different ribbons. I did ones with a really thin ribbon that I found wasn't keeping the tie real well. Too thick ribbons, and it's harder to tie. So you want to make sure you've got a good ribbon. Also, this is going to be washable, so you don't want the ends to come frayed. So if you have the kind of ribbon where the ends are fraying, you can take a lighter. I've got a candle lighter here. Again, I'm an amateur at doing these videos, so try to do this with one hand. Here we go. So essentially what you do is just barely touch the flame just to the edge of the ribbon, and that will seal it up so that it's not frayed. And you want to do that on both sides, but do it with using both your hands, not next to something cloth like I'm doing and risk burning something. All right, so once you have your ribbon ready to go, again, this was 30 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and just take this paper clip and thread it through a little bit of the way. I needed someone else to hold the camera. And then you're going to take the paper clip, and here's something I always do wrong. Start it from the top, because if you start it from the bottom, then you're going to get caught on this inside of here. So start it from here, and you're going to feed it up through, which I can't do one-handed. So you'll do both sides. You're going to feed it through and pull it through. Okay, so once you get to the other end, you can pull it on through. And now you've got your ribbon on both sides, and you're going to repeat that on the other side. So once you have the ribbon through on both sides, it's going to just slide back and forth, which will actually make it very hard to tie. And then if you wash it, this is going to come out. So what we're going to want to do is take a stitch and just sew a stitch straight through here. Now, one thing to consider is when you tie this around your head, the bottom goes around your neck. The top is going to go around around your ears, so you actually need more length on the top than on the bottom. So the ones that I've been doing, I've been measuring about 14 inches for the top. So the top will have, from the very top to the end of the ribbon, will go 14 inches. And then from the bottom, we'll do 11 inches. So based on if you did 30. So you may want to experiment, but make sure that you keep them the right side, because once you put that stitch in, this will cinch down to the stitch, top and bottom, but it's not going to be able to budge. So I do 11 inches on the bottom and 14 inches on top. Then just take your sewing machine and put a stitch across here and a stitch across here. Okay, so you're just going to stitch a little ways. That's hard to see with the light on here. Just a little ways and then just go backwards. And that should be enough to keep it in place. And then this ribbon slides really easily, so if you haven't pinned it on the other side, I'd go ahead and just remeasure, make sure that these are lining up. So now I've got my stitch through this, and it will cinch down here and it'll cinch up here for going around. The last thing to do is to put your filter on the inside. So I've got this vacuum cleaner bag. This is a microfiltration vacuum cleaner bag. The original video had suggested HEPA might be better. However, I've later heard that HEPA has glass filters, which you do not want to be breathing into your lungs. So again, I don't know any of the science on this, but from what I've learned, I'm going with microfiltration. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a square out of this bag. I've got one I've already started with here. So you can see the inside of the vacuum bag. It's got this cloth and the paper. So I make sure to keep those together, and I will measure off a square, which basically will be this same size. And it'll be a little bit different every time, so I don't want it to be bigger than this or else it'll... So here's the square that I made. And if you're making these for other people, if you're making these to donate to the hospital, you may not want to put this in here because they're going to want to wash it. And if you're infected and you're infecting other people by touching their filters, then you may just want to make the mask and let them put in their own filters. But this, you just slide in. I can't do it one-handed, so I'm going to slide it in and then start the video again. Okay, so I've got the filter in there. You can see both the fabric and the paper. So this is the mask that I just made. And again, you can cinch it up a little bit more if you want it tighter, and really adjust it. So hopefully this works out. Again, you know, the filter can be taken out and replaced anytime that you want. But it actually goes together pretty quick. Hey, so real quick update. I wanted to show one additional feature that I came up with that actually it does slow down the manufacturing of these when you're trying to get a lot out. But if someone specifically wanted a better fitting one, I put a pipe cleaner in here. And it'd actually be easier to do this while you're baking it, but I'm not remaking the whole video. If you take a small pipe cleaner and you are to put it, before you do the sides, you are to put it right up in that fold there. And all you need to do is a quick stitch along here and just a tiny little tack on either end to keep it in place. Then you will have this here so that you can bend it down around your nose and get a little bit of a tighter fit going. So a couple of people I've given the mask to, I'm not putting the pipe cleaners in, and there is a little bit of a gap here, but they have learned that if you pull that inside flap up over your nose, it actually fills in that gap. There we go. It makes it cover up higher on your nose, and it forms a tighter fit. There's much less of a space right here and here. So that's another option for wearing them. You could put the pipe cleaner along the outside edge, but I find when you wear it like this, you really don't even need it. Anyway, I hope this is helpful, and you guys sat through a very long video. Good luck and stay safe.